So after spending about a month binge watching and reviewing the original series Twin Peaks, both episode by episode for all of you Patreons, and then one TV trash video, the one thing that kept going through my head was if I should watch and review the 1992 theatrically released prequel movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. Well, after much deliberation, I went ahead and watched it. And sure enough, this movie proved to be every single thing I expected it to be. Namely, this might be the most pointless movie made from a TV show ever produced. The movie was announced only a month after the show itself was cancelled, with French company CIBY 2000 handling a lot of the finances and New Line Cinema distributing it. And as far as I can tell, the only individuals definitely excited to make the film were David Lynch and Laura Palmer's actress Cheryl Lee, the latter clearly because she would now have a much greater role. But many others involved with the show, including co-creator Mark Frost, were not as enthusiastic, and I can see why. Let's start with the very first question that I had even before I first popped the disc in. Why the hell was this movie a prequel? Instead of continuing where the show left off, given that there were definite questions that those viewers that remained wanted answered, why would you turn the clock back on a mystery story where we already know what's going to happen in the end? This again shows me that David Lynch himself really didn't know what Twin Peaks was supposed to be. And it's also essentially why I can't really give this movie a full in-detail, scene-by-scene review, because almost nothing that happens here is something that you didn't already know. The first half hour takes place a full year earlier and is all about the investigation into the murder of Teresa Banks, which of course doesn't take place in Twin Peaks and isn't even handled by Agent Dale Cooper, instead by this Agent Chet Desmond and a young Jack Bauer here. This was actually done at the insistence of Kyle MacLachlan himself, who only agreed to return to the role of Agent Cooper if he had a much smaller part. As such, Cooper doesn't even appear until near the end of this whole segment, at which point Agent Desmond is reported to have completely disappeared, along with this agent played by David Bowie of all people. Neither agent's disappearances are ever explained. When Cooper goes to investigate the disappearance, he finds a ring that I think had the symbol of the Black Lodge on it, and the ring's real purpose is never explained. There was also this mysterious redhead that told Chet everything in sign language, who is never explained. Cooper talks about this murder being one of a series of cases involving a blue rose, which is never explained. And of course, why any of these plot details involving the rose, the ring, and the disappearance of two federal agents were never mentioned in the TV series at all is, of course, never explained. Are you starting to notice a pattern here? And as a final capper, pretty much none of this has any impact on the rest of the plot. The remainder of the movie moves ahead to the final days of Laura Palmer's life, and that one statement there sums up the biggest problem with the movie. We already know exactly how this is going to end. If you've watched the series in full, you don't just know that Laura is going to die, you know how, where, when, and by who. It's just taking every single thing that Cooper and his comrades deduced happened from their investigation and showing us. I know how big the phrase show don't tell is in storytelling, but showing after telling doesn't work either. And even when we see something that wasn't revealed in the series, it either doesn't answer our questions or worse. For example, it's revealed that Laura did pretty much figure out that Bob was her father after years of being molested by him. She immediately runs to the comfort of Donna, and yet doesn't say 6 simple words, "My father's going to kill me." Yes, it might make sense that she wouldn't say that to the authorities without a way to prove it, But you'd think she'd at least say something to her best friend. Instead, she just eventually agrees to let Donna accompany her to some rave party where guys dance with girls topless, and all this does is make you wonder why this little incident was never mentioned in the series. Oh yeah, and as you've no doubt seen here, Donna isn't played by Lara Flynn Boyle in this movie, as she was one of multiple performers who did not take part. Donna was the only role completely recast, as Ben and Audrey Horne were completely written out after Richard Beymer and Sherilyn Fenn also declined. Fenn has waffled in years since as to whether her decision was due to scheduling conflicts or her distaste with how the show's second season ended up. There were reportedly a number of other characters from the series like Sheriff Truman, the Packard family, and Dr. Jacoby who were filmed, but their scenes were cut in post-production. But if their scenes were anything like the one that did stay in featuring Shelley Johnson, it's likely they didn't contribute anything to the story anyway. There are really only two things we see in this movie that really clear up two possible mysteries. That it was Leland and not Leo that attacked Jacques outside the cabin the night of the murder, and that Mike aided Renette Pulaski in escaping from Bob in the train car. But beyond that, the movie answers no real questions audiences had to have at the conclusion of the series, and actually adds at least a half dozen more unanswered questions. If you watch this movie after seeing the TV show in full, you're not going to get anything you really wanted going in. And anyone who watched this movie first years later is only going to get this TV series spoiled for themselves. None of it led to anything good, as the movie did terrible at the box office and was reportedly met with jeers at the 1992 Cannes Film Festival, though co-writer Robert Engels denies those claims. At least a few up-and-coming filmmakers appeared to have lost respect for Lynch after seeing the movie. Quentin Tarantino was quoted as saying, "David Lynch had disappeared so far up his own ass that I have no desire to see another David Lynch movie until I hear something different." Overall, the film was clearly made as some type of catharsis over David Lynch's frustration that the TV series got cancelled, but it just boggles the mind as to why, rather than use the movie to follow up on the cliffhanger that season 3 was surely going to do, he instead used it to just rehash plot elements that the audience was already aware of. If this was some type of Hail Mary to get the series restored, it failed miserably, and of course, we didn't hear anything ever again from Twin Peaks until 25 years later. Unless that was David Lynch's intent all along, and from what I've already seen from him, I wouldn't be surprised if that was true.